Hello, everybody. Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Oskaloosa Student Section official podcast. This is John Hurl. I'm joined by
Connor Swim.
And we're going to be talking some Oskaloosa hoops. So, first on the agenda is talking about Pella Christian. So, Connor, why don't you tell me kind of your takeaways from the Pella Christian game, your pros, cons. There weren't a ton of cons because it was a great team win.
Yep.
But so tell me kind of your thoughts.
I mean, first thing I think is how awesome it is to sweep Pella Christian for the season. I mean, they're ranked number 1 in 2A. I mean,
I think it's important to mention that before this past loss, Pella Christian was leading the LHC. They were
for sure
on top of the LHC, which is the toughest conference in 3A.
So it was a great mark to beat them both times on the season, and the second time especially a lot more handedly than 2 overtimes the first time. I think something that's really helpful is that very obviously we match up really well against Pella Christian. We just have so much height, and no doubt about it, Pella Christian is the Jungling and Kakmarinsky show. I mean, those are their guys. Those are the guys they need to show up, and they were underwhelming against us in this last game for sure.
Yeah, we match up so well against Pella Christian. Levi Jungling had an off night.
Yep.
Which always helps. Credit to Tanner DeCock and Tucker Nunakoven.
For sure.
Also credit to Levi because he didn't play that well.
For sure.
His shot, there were a couple shots that were open. He's going to get, he's arguably the MVP of the entire Little Hawkeye Conference. Very good basketball player. You know he's going to be, better, but we were lucky to catch him on a cold game.
And not to undersell the job that Tanner.
Yeah, not to undersell the job that Tanner and Tucker did because they've defended him very well.
Very well.
Xavier Foster played better than he has in the past, and that makes it sound like Xavier's played bad. No. Xavier he's improving. He got some blocks in this game. He got some rebounds in this game. He looked good. He hit a couple threes. He was, Xavier really is showing you what he is going to be able to do in the future, and he was making less mistakes, which is always good. Another player that stepped up in this Pella Christian win was Spencer Tucker. Sure. His 3-point game seems to be coming back to him. He didn't turn the ball over when he was pressured by Levi Jungling, who's one of the best defenders in the Little Hawkeye.
He's just a sneaky player who's known for just stripping balls that he has no business.
Levi can be a very good defender. And another good defensive job was the job that Jared Cruz did on David Kakmarinsky.
With some help from Jack Moore.
Who would come in on some help side D. David Kakmarinsky, he's going to get his. He had a couple shots where he literally rose up over Jared. He banked in a shot that Jared couldn't have played better defense. But other than that,
just a talented player making plays. But
definitely.
Those two just, you hear so much about them, and then for them to come in and really not have that large of an effect on the game. It was nice to see just a good collective defensive effort from the Indians with a little bit of help from an off night.
One thing I want to say about that win is Oskaloosa basketball sweeped what is probably going to be the 2A state champs.
Yep, for sure.
Which is always good. They were, like I said, leading the LHC. That title now belongs to Pella as the leaders of the LHC conference. So, so that kind of wraps up PC. What we saw against PC.
One more thing I want to touch on is, or I guess some final points for that is, it's nice to see Xavier Foster starting to step up.
Definitely.
And you can see as the games progress the potential that kid has. I mean, it's incredible. He's playing less and less like a 14-year-old every time he steps out onto the floor. I mean, he has such high expectations for him, which is just unfortunate because. It's hard to live up to those.
14.
He's 14. The kid can't drive without a parent.
The highest license he can achieve is a permit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The kid has to have a parent in the car, and we expect him to be basketball Jesus sometimes, It's just...
Boy, it's hard not to when you see this stuff that he can do. But
there's so much.
You have to tell yourself that you can't expect this guy to be LeBron James. But boy, you can see the talent.
There's so much upside, and in flashes. I mean, something to mention for him is that he has 49 blocks on the season.
Yes, and
49.
I am willing to bet that 49 blocks and the amount of time that Xavier Foster has played leads the state in blocks per minute.
Well, he's averaging 4 blocks a game. That's absolutely incredible.
Definitely.
It's such a big factor on the game, and not just counting blocks, just shots that he's altered. People that have to think about shooting over him.
you can't go inside. That's the thing about Xavier Foster is when he's in the game, he takes away an entire section of the court, which is so impressive. He's so long. He's so big.
And to some effect, Cole Henry does that as well.
And Cole Henry does a good job of that too. We have Oskaloosa has great bigs, man.
Yeah, for sure. It's a gift to have.
Definitely.
We're such a tall team.
You can't coach height. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's so hard to get.
And then we got lucky that our height is also talent too.
Yeah, absolutely. So
something I want to touch on really quick is Cole Henry. Just because on the fact that at the beginning of the season, the kid was on fire. Like he was unstoppable.
Absolutely.
His moves, you look at that, those are college and pro looking moves. Like you can imagine him playing on TV or something.
Definitely, absolutely.
With the moves he's making. The unfortunate part being the last few games, the shot just hasn't been falling. It's not like he's been playing poorly or been taking poor shots. It's just an unlucky stretch.
Yeah,
for the last few games.
The moves are still there. The ball's not going in the net. He's gonna work himself out of it. It's important that Cole doesn't get discouraged.
Yeah.
Because his shot's not falling right now. Cole needs to keep taking those shots because if Cole Henry can hit some of those shots, that's a win against Pella.
And it's not like we're shitting on Cole Henry. Yeah.
I don't mean to say anything bad about Cole Henry, but if he can hit those shots, Oskaloosa becomes a whole new basketball team. Yeah. Like, can you imagine an Oskaloosa basketball team with a Jack Moore that's playing as well as he is right now, a Jared Cruz that's playing as well as he is right now. We'll touch on Jack and Jared later.
Yep.
And a Cole Henry, and an improving Xavier Foster that's taking up an entire portion of the court on defense, and a Cole Henry that is once again hitting those shots that he's taking. Mm-hmm. Cole puts himself in a better position to score than probably anyone on the team.
Yep.
The shot's just not falling right now. He's going to improve it, and
we saw at the beginning of the season. Exactly. We saw at the beginning of the season when those shots were going down, he was unguardable.
And the guy's still the third leading scorer on the team. He's averaging 13 points.
I mean, so we might be overplaying the stretch that he's having. It's just, I'm not even saying it's just like he lost
rebounder.
it. Yeah, exactly. He's not losing touch.
Cole's still a player. Cole's still a dude.
I mean, you look at any team, though, players have just an off couple nights. And I think he's had his off couple nights for the season. So you're going to see him pick it back up here soon. And I expect the next few games to be huge. But you look at the PC game, if he hits those shots, we blow them out. We blow Pella Christian out.
Absolutely. And there were a couple times you hate to bring up hypotheticals and the past because it always makes everybody just feel bad. But if Cole hits a couple of the shots that he took against Pella that were good shots, that he put himself into a good position to score, we win that game.
For sure.
If he hits one of them, we win the game. We lost the game by 1 point.
Well, I mean, also, you win the game if Jack and Jared get another minute of not being in foul trouble, Yeah,
and we'll talk about Jack and Jared later, like we said.
Maybe one final point I want to say on Pella Christian is it was nice to consistently hit our free throws.
Yes, that was the first game this year where we were knocking down free throws.
That we needed to hit to win the game, quite honestly. And like that, it just... So at some points during the season, you felt every free throw was a 50-50 ball. And during the Pella Christian game, I felt like, all right, this is automatic. Like, we're on tonight. It was just it was nice to watch.
Yep, absolutely. So now we will quickly look ahead to Grinnell. We're not going to touch on DCG in this cast. We'll probably do another one to touch on DCG. But Grinnell, kind of some quick stats that you might want to know about Grinnell basketball. Here, we'll pull them up. Is that Grinnell is currently have 5 losses on the season. Those losses come to Pella. They come to Pella, Boone, DCG. When DCG was on their great run, they come to a Newton team. Newton blew out Grinnell, and they come to Pella Christian,
who beat them by 15.
So you always play the game of, oh, we beat Pella Christian and Pella Christian beat Grinnell. You can't do that in the Little Hawkeye. It's so playing the Little Hawkeye is they're all so close together and so every team is good.
I mean, everyone's beating everyone.
That you really can't play that game.
Yeah, I look at Grinnell and I see 2 players again, just very similar to Pella Christian that just make up the entire team.
And you can argue Grinnell is the Sam Allen and Cade McKnight duo that Grinnell boasts is arguably the best in the little Hawkeye. You can put it up there next to Kakamarinski and Jungling. You can argue that. So whenever you have two players of the level of Allen and McKnight, it's tough, especially when one of those, McKnight, is big, really big.
For sure. I mean, he's something to deal with. I think the thing that will make Grinnell a game that is like we win comfortably is if we can somehow find a way to put McKnight in foul trouble.
Yeah. We need to make Allen try to win the game on his own.
Because I think we have defenders who can handle him.
Yeah, Jared
or limit him.
Or not Jared, but Tanner and Tucker can get up in Allen's face and definitely handle him. And this Grinnell team, I think it's important to mention that the final score for Oskaloosa Grinnell, Grinnell wins the game by 11 points. The game, I think, was closer than 11 points, though. Yes. At the beginning into the fourth quarter, it's a tied ball game. Or Oskaloosa's down by 1. It's very close. It's a very winnable ball game. There started being some fouls, and Oskaloosa's not, Grinnell's hitting foul shots. The game kind of gets out of the hands of Oskaloosa. But Oskaloosa is a very young team, and with young teams, they improve every single night, which I think is true for Oskaloosa.
Yep.
And this is a better Oskaloosa basketball team that's playing at home. So you have to like Grinnell. You have to like Oskaloosa's chances against Grinnell.
For sure. I think Grinnell is they're a team that has played inconsistently throughout the season. They have shown nights where they dominate, and they have showed nights where they get blown out. They have 5 losses on the season, which is close to the 8-4 of Oskaloosa. But they beat Norwalk by 43, but then they lose to Newton by 27. So it's just whether or not they're feeling it that night, and honestly whether or not we're feeling it that night as well. It's
one thing to mention. Oskaloosa currently, according to BC Moore's rankings, which is logarithm rankings, Oskaloosa is ranked 10th in the state, and Grinnell is 13 for BC Moore.
Interesting.
I'll try to find some Iowa Preps rankings. I don't believe Grinnell is ranked in Iowa Preps, but Grinnell is on a 3-game win streak. It's important to note that 2 of those wins come against the 2 teams that me and Connor believe to be the bottom tier of the LHC, which is still very impressive in Indianola and Norwalk, and their other one comes to Cedar Rapids, Washington. So they're on a 3-game win streak, but take it with a grain of salt because they are facing teams that are
not the cream of the crop.
They're not the cream of the crop.
And touching on the Norwalk game that Oskaloosa played against Norwalk, that we did end up actually losing, that was, I feel like, I don't know, just the worst of all things happening. We were just so off that night. I don't really feel like that's indicative of how good of a team we are. I think a lot of teams.
And it comes down that Norwalk. There's a foul called last second.
Exactly, that's something not to forget. Tucker kind of got just boned on that one. It's unfortunate to see that, and he hits 1 of 2 foul shots to win the game. Yeah. So it's just he just that one leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth. Something I want to touch on is Spencer Tucker, just for the fact that he started off the season. Everyone knows him as the 3-point threat that he is. He started off the season kind of inconsistent. It's just some nights or some stretches of the game even he would be on and would hit a few threes in a row. Some nights he would just be cold. And, with shooters, you expect that. People have off stretches. It has been so nice to see him catch fire the last few games, especially. And then Pella Christian, it was huge just because he hit some huge shots. So seeing him pick it back up from where he was last season helps the team so much.
Spencer Tucker's good. There were points in this year when his shooting is off, and Spencer is not a ball distributing point guard. He very much looks to shoot the ball. So when his shot's off, he doesn't. You kind of see, maybe you question how much he's, providing to team wins.
Yeah.
But when his three is on, you can make a very strong case that he belongs out there, and I think he does.
You have a hard time keeping him off the court.
You have a hard time keeping him off the court when he's hitting threes like that. So
it's like automatic points.
It's very good to see Spencer back where he, kind of hitting the percentage he was last year.
For sure. Something we've touched on Cole Henry, we've touched on Spencer Tucker, touched a little bit on Xavier Foster,
and I want to talk about a couple guys.
Oh, let's hear it.
Jack Moore and Jared Cruz.
For sure.
We're kind of getting away from the Grinnell game. We've kind of previewed Grinnell.
Just talking about the state of the team now.
I think now we'll move on to kind of the state of the team portion of the podcast. So my state of the team, what I think about Oskaloosa basketball at this point, I want to highlight two guys.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that I'm stealing them from you. You can have one of them if you want. I'm going to talk about Jared Cruz and Jack Moore.
Yep.
What Jared Cruz is doing is very, very impressive. He leads the team in points per game, right around 16. Mm-hmm. Jared is making a very respectable 40% from three-point land.
Yep.
Jared is second on the team in rebounds. And I compare his game very closely to an opponent he just played in David Kakmarinsky.
Yep.
David Kakmarinsky has always been kind of an undersized big, much like Jared Cruz. He's always been a big that has played over his height, much like Jared Cruz. And he's always been a player that has been able to create his own shot. Jared and Kak are very similar in that they both create their own shots down low.
Both guys definitely play above their size. You look at it, and Jared is just always going to have great fundamentals. He's always going to be a consistent player. That's one of the things I love most about Jared Cruz is you know what to expect from him night in and night out. And he's had a couple breakout games too where he's completely taken over. But I can think of a stretch in nearly every game so far that Jared Cruz has just completely dominated the game. He goes down the floor and scores 8 points in a row or something. And he's just such a valuable player to have on the team. He's a defensive presence. He scores very easily at times, and his moves in the post are pretty to watch for sure. And also, you can't forget about his three ball because he's such a consistent 3-point shooter.
I think it's important to mention, we're going to highlight the Grinnell game again. BC Moore has the line for that Grinnell game as Grinnell -4. So they're giving Oskaloosa 4 points.
Yep.
Which BC Moore automatically gives 3 points for playing at home.
Yep.
So really, BC Moore thinks that Grinnell is a 7-point. Oskaloosa is a 7-point underdog to Grinnell, but they give him the 3 points for being at home. So that's what BC Moore says. That's a totally logarithm based. So take it for what you think. But they're right a lot, and that's another tangent. But anyway, so we talked about how great Jared Cruz is doing. He's kind of I would call him the MVP. I love watching Jared Cruz play basketball. I'm kind of getting biased here.
Yeah.
This isn't what you're supposed to do, but I'm going to get biased, and I'm going to say that I love watching Jared Cruz play basketball. He's undersized. I love Jared, but he's not that fast. But he's fast off of the first dribble.
That's the point I was going to make.
And he creates his point. He creates his shots.
He's not like breakaway speed, but when defenders are caught off guard so often about how quick he is with his dribble, and he's so sure with the ball. You don't see Jared turn the ball over. Like ever. And just from my point of bias, I just like Jared Cruz as a person, so I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, Jared's a humble guy. And then I am going to talk about Jack Moore. Okay. And a lot's been said about Jack Moore in his life, and I'm going to say some more. Jack is playing very good basketball. He currently leads the team in field goal percentage at 65, which is unworldly.
So efficient.
Jack uses the glass so well. So Jack is playing very, very well. He's currently averaging about 14 points a game. Jack's currently 4th on the team in rebounds. Just some kind of quick stats. He averages a bogus 75% from 3-point land because he's 3 for 4. Jack should shoot the 3 more.
Exactly.
That's another tangent. Jack needs to take more 3-point shots. But
he's a good 3-point shooter.
Jack and Jared are kind of similar in the fact that they create their own shots. They are very good at driving to the hoop. I don't think anybody on the team drives to the hoop and scores better than Jack and Jared.
Well, and then you have to look at even when their shot doesn't go in, half the time they get fouled anyway.
They go to the line a lot.
You like to see it when they start to dart towards the hoop.
Unfortunately for Jared Cruz, throw a little bit of shade after I just mentioned how much I love him. He's averaging 49% from the free throw.
That's the only downside.
Which is the only downside of his game. And he'll get that up. Jared Jared's going to work on that. But anyway, more about Jack Moore. When he and Jared were both in foul trouble in that game against Pella that we ended up losing by 1, we saw a lot of the offense taking a really long time to get a shot. You can credit that to two things. One, Pella's a very good defensive team. They were playing a very solid zone. But another thing, Oskaloosa struggled when both of their premier bucket getters, the guys that are going to go get and create their own shots, were out. Oskaloosa was challenged in, they weren't able to create their own shots.
And something to mention off of that point is that Jared Cruz and Cole Henry, obviously too, are two big guys that can create their own shots and are also great facilitators when you see them in the game. Like they kind of play. Well. You were talking about this earlier. That Jared and Cole essentially play the same role in the team a lot of times, but when they're both on the floor, the ball movement is so pretty to watch.
Yeah, both of those guys willing to make the extra pass. Jared, I don't think Jared Cruz's assist numbers really tell you the whole story about how good of a passer he is out of the post. But Jared's very good at finding the open guy. And we'll have a little segment after this where we talk about kind of an underrated Indian, and I'm going to talk about a guy that throws a lot of assists. So, we will talk about assists later, too.
One more thing about Jack Moore, just from a kind of more technical standpoint, is Jack Moore is always going to have open shots because of the way he shoots the ball. And I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, absolutely. His shot form.
Jack Moore worked on this for a long time. And obviously, just being straight up, John and I are obviously very biased because Jack Moore is one of our best friends. So trying not to brag on him too much.
Yeah, we're going to brag on Jack, but so much of it comes because we're so happy to see how he's playing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're so happy to see where last year where he struggled, and we felt for him so much, and I think all of the fans felt for him.
I'm going to attribute that to his ankle injury. I don't think he ever fully recovered from that until this year.
And now he's good, and Jack's playing so well lately.
But, so back to the technical point. Jack, when he shoots, he jumps up as high as he can to shoot his jump shot, and defenders jump up to try and block it. He holds onto the ball, jumps higher than everyone else, and then shoots it on his way.
He has underrated hops.
Yeah, exactly.
He gets high. Yeah.
Yeah, he starts to shoot the ball on his way back down, which by that time his defender's already on the floor. So he's going to have an open shot then, as long as his defender isn't 6'11", or something. So he is so good at shooting those little 10-foot shots.
Yeah.
That bounce off the glass.
He hits it off the glass. He uses the glass. And another thing about Jack is, this is going to sound like such a I'm his best friend thing, but Jack's stronger than anybody on the court. Jack is a strong guy. He plays basketball similar to a football player. That's a good and bad thing because he's going to be able to get a lot of contact, layups, stuff like that. He's going to be able to hit in
Great
inside.
and one finishing.
Great and one finishing. Also, that football player type mentality means that he fouls a lot, which is the unfortunate part of it.
And I'm going to attribute a lot of that to how much AAU ball he has played over the years. I mean, playing for his AAU team, the refs kind of let you go in that, just watching him play. So trying to tone yourself back, and then after playing football as well, it's just you got to check yourself on how physical you're being sometimes.
And he's kind of done that. He's not. I can say this because he's one of my best friends. He's not fouling stupidly anymore. He's not making.
There was a stretch where he's
not making stupid fouls.
People in the stands would be like, "Oh man,
yeah, why? They'd be like, why are you doing that, Jack?" So there's where the team stands now. Now, Connor, I know you have a couple guys that you want to highlight as
for sure.
Some guys that are kind of flying under the radar of the fans. I'm going to talk about Ryan Yates.
Yes.
Ryan Yates is one of my favorite Oskaloosa Indians because he's a lot of things. He is a underrated defender.
Yes.
He's so long. I can kind of compare him to Nick Finney in Nick Finney's arm. I think his wingspan's probably like 7 feet because the guy's got such long arms. Yeah. Ryan Yates is similar. Ryan Yates is 6'4", I believe. He's got a very long wingspan that makes him a great defender, a great shot blocker.
Yep.
An underrated shot blocker because he can raise up and block, like jump shots.
Yep.
Ryan Yates has an absolutely incredible assist to turnover ratio. I'll do the math right now as I'm talking. Ryan Yates is doing a very good job passing, which, you love Spencer Tucker. Ryan Yates is really the ball distributor point guard when he's in the game, and Spencer Tucker is really the scoring point guard when he's in the game.
And something we were talking about is an interesting combo that we've seen a few times throughout the season that I enjoy looking at it is when Ryan Yates is running the point and Spencer is running the two. Just in the fact that they're kind of allowed to do the things that they're talented at, where Ryan Yates can distribute and Spencer can get open for threes. The thing is, the times when you do want Spencer playing the point is when there are presses being thrown on by the team, or
and Spencer's good at handling.
There's
pressure.
a ball hawk like jungling, out there, because Spencer's handles have saved us so many times in late game situations when the pressure's starting to be poured on. I mean, he's a kid with ice in his veins in many senses, just because he's made some pretty amazing dribbling moves to get us out of sticky situations.
Yeah, Spencer and Ryan is a good situational substitution. The only downside to Spencer and Ryan, we got so much talent. The only downside to Spencer and Ryan is that you have to take out somebody else that's really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's Oskaloosa basketball in a nutshell, is you just want all of these guys on the court at the same time. Because we have, I believe, 1 through 5, I don't think Oskaloosa is the most talented team. But 1 through 8, Oskaloosa is the most talented team in the entire state. Oskaloosa has more depth than anyone. It's crazy, So, we want everyone to play. I was going to say Ryan Yates' assist-to-turnover ratio is a perfect 4.0.
That's insane.
Which means he has 4 assists for every turnover that he commits. That's incredible, folks. That is like a high school kid having that type of assist-to-turnover ratio is pretty much unheard of.
It's so valuable to have on the team. Just someone who I would call Ryan Yates a situational player. Like, not that he only can play well in certain situations. It's that he does what's required of him every night. There are nights when he's had to pick up some scoring. There's been some lack in scoring.
And he always seems to hit the right shot at the right time.
Right, exactly. His three ball always seems to be on when we need it.
Yeah, and it's not like Ryan's not a dominant scorer, but he just scores at the right times.
And I will say that he scores when the team needs him to score. When guys like Jack and Jared and Cole and Spencer are all hitting, he doesn't need to score. He's not out there to score. He's out there to put the ball into the hot hands, and he does a fantastic job with that, as his stats show. And then he plays great defense when there's maybe a point guard who's a little taller, or there's a guard out there, or they have a good guard combo when we can't have both Tanner and Tucker out there at the same time, so we can feel comfortable. Or really good, actually.
Ryan's definitely the third guy. You throw Tanner at him, and then you throw Nanakoven at him, and then if need be, you throw Ryan at him.
And so Ryan is another guy, I'm going to say, similar to Jared Cruz, that you just root for, I mean, our team is just
humble
full of guys.
Ryan's a good, he kind of is a calm, he's not a guy that's necessarily a driver, but he's a guy that can swing the ball around. He can distribute the ball. He's not going to turn it over. You feel very confident in the fact that he's not going to mess up.
I do like the fact that a couple of times this season when he's gotten hot in his threes, he's flashed a couple threes up in the air, done some
fun.
threes off the side. Yeah, I know, it's great. I love seeing the guys have fun like that.
And so that is enough.
Ryan Yates.
My
point I'm going to get onto here is I feel like some unsung heroes on the team who just don't get enough credit are Tanner and Tucker Nanakoven, because those guys are asked to do the toughest job every night. They have to go out there and defend the other team's best player, unless the best player is obviously like a center. Then they don't do that. But when the other team has a dominant guard, they have to go out there and limit that guy. They have to shut him down. And so far this season, they have done an absolutely outstanding job. Those guys have to work so hard. And, they don't get a lot of credit because they don't score the ball, but they're not out there to score the ball. They're out there to play consistently, play smart. I'd say they're smart players who don't make very many mistakes.
From a fan's perspective that doesn't understand what's going on the court, I love Tanner DeCock, and I feel comfortable saying this only because he's such a good friend of mine. I heard the quote, "Why is Tanner out there?"
From the student section?
From the student section.
Yeah.
And I didn't turn around. I didn't want to make any enemies, so I didn't turn around and yell at them.
Yeah.
But, folks, Tanner DeCock is so important. There's a reason Tanner's a starter, since his freshman year.
I mean, he's our strongest defender.
He's the strongest defender, and you don't realize what he does because it doesn't show up. There's no stat line for how well you defend against the other team's best player. I
mean, if we had in-depth stats, then yes, there is. But
Quick Stats doesn't Quick Stats doesn't have a stat for that. So, Tanner does. He doesn't score. He's not a proficient scorer.
No,
but he's a above proficient defender.
Yeah,
and he's a guy. Another point, you hate to, you sound like an old man when you say stuff like this. You sound like somebody that's, not using stats. But Tanner would cut his finger off for the team.
Yeah,
Tanner is so devoted to Oskaloosa basketball. He would do absolutely anything if it meant Oskaloosa was going to win.
Yeah.
And that is where a lot of that comes from. Ticket's the same way. Tucker Nunakoven.
Yep, for sure.
Tucker Nunakoven is a naturally fast guy.
Yes. Very gifted in that.
Oh, another thing I want to say about Tanner to make him happy is somebody that I know said that we were talking about Oskaloosa basketball, and they said that they believed Tanner DeCock to be the second fastest person on the Oskaloosa Indians basketball team behind Tucker Nunakoven. So you can take that for what it's worth. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but maybe on the basketball court, Tanner has another gear. But Tanner's he hustles so hard. And he and Nunakoven both.
And it's so nice to have two of them. I mean, a lot of teams, they have one defender who's better than the rest. And if that guy gets in foul trouble, then you're screwed.
Which is a problem because Tanner and Ticket have a proclivity to foul.
Yeah. So then when you have two of them, and you can essentially trade them out in a lot of situations. Oh, that's so helpful to have. Just because, like, you get one guy in foul trouble, and eventually, like most teams, all right, that's all you have to worry about. Then your star can have free reign. But then all of a sudden there's a second one in there, and he can just lock your guy down just as well. They bring so much value to the team that just doesn't get mentioned because there's no stats for it.
All right, so I think we're close to wrapping this up. I think we blew smoke up everyone's you-know-what on the team. We talked about Jared. We talked about Jack. Talked about Cole, Spencer, Xavier, Tanner, Ryan, Tucker.
I think I'm going to just to bring it back down to a reasonable level, two weaknesses we have as a team. One is free throws.
Okay.
Our highest
we'll talk. This is the cons part of the Procast, ladies.
Just really
podcast,
quick.
Ladies and gentlemen. This is where we're kind of going to get you down right before the end. So you're like, hey, I don't like those guys. They said mean things about the Indians. But go on, Connor.
So 65% from free throw.
Yeah, that needs to
throughout the season. That has honestly affected our win-loss pretty heavily. You look at Pella, we win that game if we had our free throws. You look at Norwalk, we win that game if we hit our free throws. And so
that was arguable.
10-2 sounds a lot better than 8-4.
Absolutely. 10-2 means we're probably ranked top 5 in according to the rankings.
Yeah. And so it's just, I believe in the guys. They have shown the last few games how much better they've gotten, and I think that they're going to continue to ride this. So hopefully that's on the up. Hopefully that won't be a negative for so much longer. And then I'm going to say the other negative is just sometimes it's so inconsistent how we play. If we definitely can, but also the inconsistency, a lot of it came earlier in the first half of the season. And now we're starting to see the young team, as we mentioned earlier, improve. So I don't think there's a whole lot of negatives to this team at this point, just because a lot of the negatives in the season came from we're a young team.
Yeah, absolutely, Connor. And I encourage the fans to get excited. Oskaloosa Indian basketball is on the up and up. They're very talented. It's the most talented team they've had in years. The only negatives is they play in a really tough conference. And the record, I don't think, is going to show how good this team is.
Yeah.
And, maybe even the record at the end of the year might not show how good this team is. And they might not make a deep playoff run because they're going to draw maybe a seed that they're better than, and they might have to play a really tough team. But I'm going to say this. Oskaloosa basketball is improving every single week.
Yep.
I think it's reasonable. The Little Hawkeye Conference title is not a this year thing. It's too good this year.
It's possible, but it's not.
It's possible. We have to win out. I mean, it's tough. It's possible. Highly unlikely. And there's a voice crack there. Highly unlikely that we get that because we'd have to win out.
Just the strength of the LAC.
It's so good. It's Grinnell. I mean, and everyone said going into this year, Oskaloosa is 1 year out from winning the LAC, which is absolutely true because next year all of these teams get significantly worse. Everyone graduates.
So
every good player in the LAC, save Born. I'm not saying his name wrong. From Norwalk, Luke Vasky from Norwalk. Norwalk's going to be a good team next year. Connor Golson has gone from Norwalk, Newton next year. McKnight and Allen, who really are Grinnell, are gone from Grinnell last year. And Pella Christian doesn't have anyone besides Kakamarinski.
The one thing you have to know is that Pella, are always going to be good.
Pella's always going to be a good team.
They're a machine, man.
You hope that they take a step back next year because they do lose Van Wyck, Finney, two of their best players. So don't expect the LHC conference title. But one thing you can expect is Oskaloosa to win some games on this backstretch.
Yep.
I think Oskaloosa wins at Grinnell. I will say that. We haven't gotten to our Grinnell prediction yet. We might as well do that now. I'm going to say Oskaloosa wins that game outright.
Yep.
The spread is Grinnell -4. I'm going to say Oskaloosa wins the game outright.
I think, for me, that game, we know what we're going to get from Jack. We know what we're going to get from Jared. I think that game depends on Cole Henry, and that game depends on Xavier Foster.
Exactly what I was going to say. Mm-hmm.
So those two show up, we destroy Grinnell. I'm not. Maybe destroy is dramatic. We beat Grinnell pretty handedly.
Yep.
If they don't, it's up in the air. It's just who plays better down the stretch.
Definitely.
I think I'm going to skip to the point you were trying to make. If we can start to catch fire towards the end of our schedule,
win some games.
I think a playoff run is realistic.
Yep.
Yes.
Draw a 2 seed in the playoffs. And that 2 seed means that we'll probably get paired up with a Grinnell, a Pella, because it's purely based on region. We're probably, unfortunately, going to have to play either Grinnell or Pella in the playoffs. Two solid teams. But we showed well against Pella.
Sure.
And we'll see what we do against Grinnell. So those are two winnable games. The thing about Oskaloosa basketball this year is that every single game is winnable.
Yes.
There were times last year where there were games that were unwinnable. This year, every single game is winnable.
Yes.
We're not favored at every single game, but every single game is winnable. So that is, a great thing to have in your mind because the playoffs are one game. You need to show up for one game.
Okay.
And so I think it's reasonable to hope that Oskaloosa can make a run.
All right, so I think to finish off here, two things is one thing we're going to say is that we are looking for maybe some suggestions. What do the people want as a theme night for this upcoming Grinnell game on Tuesday?
And if you stayed through to the end of the podcast, we're going to congratulate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And you automatically have first bid to come talk to either John Hurl, Connor Swim, or Bennett Spry and give a suggestion for the student section.
Also, I'm going to say, I assume we're posting a link to this on Twitter.
Yes, we are going to post a link to this.
So if you favorite and retweet this podcast, we are offering out a $25 Subway gift card as a prize. So you retweet it. Your name's entered into the drawing. We'll draw it out, get that to you as soon as possible.
This is the thing. You have to reply to the tweet that we sent with just Subway. And if a lot of you do this, it's going to be really confusing to the people that don't listen to the podcast. But if only one of you does it, you'll just kind of look like a weirdo.
But you'll win, I guess.
So if you listen to this entire podcast, reply with Subway on Twitter.
Also, let all your friends know about this.
Like I said, first episode, man.
Yeah.
There is a group of about 4 angry sophomores right now
Sorry,
at
guys.
us from the Oskaloosa Sports Zone podcast. Sorry, guys. We're kind of stomping on your territory. You guys were doing this first, but me and Connor just thought it was going to be fun. This is not meant to
Hey, we're having a good time.
We're just having a good time, man, talking Osky hoops.
So let your friends know about this and give us feedback, of course, because we'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
All right, so
other than that,
Connor, I'll let you give your goodbye to the audience. I'll give mine, and we'll wrap this thing up.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you all for listening. Beat Grinnell.
Thank you. Beat Grinnell. Go Indians.